Hi, folks. Dr. Josh Packard back with you again. I'm the Executive Director of Springtide Research Institute.
And I'm Megan Bissell, Head of Research for Springtide Research Institute.
Now, over the years, Megan, we have had this opportunity thrust upon us to develop this tool and process called objective mapping. And we're sort of saying that we had this opportunity because it really was born out of necessity for us.
Yeah, we had a lot of stumbles and falls and a lot of working with a lot of various different issues with clients that led us to this process, but we're really grateful for it. So it is actually an opportunity.
That's right. And so that tool, objective mapping, it's essentially, I mean, when you look at it, it's just a giant spreadsheet. Megan's going to show you how to do that in a future video. But before we get into the nuts and bolts about what to put in columns and what to put in rows and what questions to ask to get you there and all that, I thought we would take a minute just to sort of think, at a 30,000 foot view of why objective mapping is so important and why we developed it and how people can use it. So there are like 5 things that I was thinking about, Megan, in particular with regard to how objective mapping works with program evaluation in particular. And the first thing is that research can often be as much a political process as anything else, right? I mean, you've got all of these people, who feel like the outcome might impact their job, or they want to protect their little, not little, sometimes it's big, they want to protect their domain. So how does this tool, how does the spreadsheet help to sort of manage this political process of research?
Yeah, people don't realize how many stakeholders there actually are in the research process. And it's political because there's a lot of voices that need to be heard that aren't always at the table and aren't always in those conversations when the design of the research project happens in order to make sure that you're covering all the bases and getting all the content that you need for that research process. So the political part of it is objective mapping is essentially a way to invite people into a conversation about what they think the priorities are for the project. And inviting a lot of people to have that conversation to make sure that all the bases are covered.
And then holding people accountable to the things that they
say. Right.
And that gets us into the second part that, this was really the impulse behind developing it in the first place, was to prevent scope creep. So not in part because sometimes I guess early on, like we would just get interested in stuff that the client wasn't interested in, but also clients were looking for a way to sort of just not get carried away with whatever, new idea came to them. There's a beginning of a project, there needs to be an end of a project, we have to agree on it. What are some ways that you've seen that scope creep that is so common to so many research projects get just sort of hemmed in by this?
Well, if you've ever been part of a research project, which I know you have,
right?
It's really easy to just get sidetracked by the next shiny thing that comes up. People get really invested and interested in all the different angles and dimensions,
their own little pet projects
of the thing that they care the most about. And so it's really easy to go off the rails. They start by saying, I want to know the impact of this one program, and then pretty soon it turns into, but also, what if we explored this? And also we could look at this, and pretty soon you have an enormous project that is not manageable. We have actually worked with several clients that just get so excited and passionate about their content that, we actually had to develop this process because that has happened more than one time where a client has said, I want to add on to this, and we have to say, wait a second, this is not what we originally decided.
And it's not what they need.
Right, and that's the thing. It doesn't ultimately serve the objective of the project. It doesn't serve the whole purpose of the project to just go off in a bunch of different tangents.
We've all heard the phrase dead on arrival.
Yeah.
But the reports from projects that suffer from scope or mission creep, the ones that don't have objective mapping, I like to say are dead in committee. So what happens, right, is that they get these reports that, if you've let everybody sort of bolt on whatever piece of Frankenstein that they want to this thing, then you end up with a report that just sits in a committee that never gets translated into action because
there's too many.
There's too much going on.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to make sense of it all.
Different angles to go down. And it's harder to take action that way too. When there's too many varying degrees, it's really difficult to know what kind of things to recommend and what action steps to take from those.
Yeah, it's a really, maybe that's the single biggest reason for engaging in a process like objective mapping. The third thing that came to mind about program evaluations was that it helps doing the objective mapping process with the stakeholders, like you mentioned, it helps to communicate your organization's values around inclusion or transparency or whatever it is that your organization actually values. We talked a little bit about this in the last video series about how the research process itself could be a thing that strengthens your organization. And I think particularly with program evaluations, it's the objective mapping tool that can do that.
It does. The process of filling out the objective map is essentially a number of discovery conversations that invite people to participate in a conversation about what the direction of the project needs to be. And it's the opportunity of the leadership of the organization to say, what kind of things do we need to be considering in order to be as effective as we need to be with this project? It's an opportunity for leadership. If you say that your organization values inclusion, then this is an opportunity to bring people to the table who can speak into that most educated, and to be able to make sure that those points are really captured in the research project, thereby reinforcing your values.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. So if you want to, if you're an organization that really prides itself on being innovative, then when you go to evaluate your programs, you're looking for what's next, right? Well, the objective map can capture all of those things, especially in the way that you're going to share here, not just how to make the objective map, but how to ask what we call $1 million questions that get you to the right content on that map. Those will be in future videos as well. Yeah. You've also said many times, I've heard you talking with clients, you say this is a living document.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
documents are like, they exist on computers.
This is my favorite part about the objective map, is that it's essentially an extension of the conversation about the project until it gets finally signed off and executed. But essentially, it's a way to build organically all of the things that we need to be asking, to dump everybody's ideas, and then go through the process of aligning it with the objectives. And so it becomes essentially just an ongoing conversation about the project. It's a place to check in with progress as things are going throughout the project. And it's a place to make sure that we're all holding each other accountable to those objectives. And so you get to check in on it. Yeah. Even if you can't have a conversation about it directly, the objective map itself is a way to always know what's happening.
In fact, I remember a few times we've had clients at the end of a project, they'd say like, well, I really wanted to call you to see if we could do X or Y or Z, but then I went and looked at the objective map. I realized we were halfway through the project and it didn't align with any of the objectives, so we're just going to put it away for another evaluation down the road, which I thought is like, that's exactly what it's for.
Yeah, it is, and it helps to kind of ward off those lingering questions that clients that you might have in your organization about, what is this something that we can be doing right now, or is this something that might be able to be addressed by something we're already looking at? It's just a quick and easy way to check in.
And it even works the other way. So I've seen it actually spark good ideas too, not just close off things. So once you've got your objective set, then you start figuring out how you're going to meet those objectives with research instruments. And you'll find, I think clients find sometimes that there were things that they didn't think they could do, but that fall into those objectives, like, oh, we actually already have that data, or we could just ask another couple of questions on the survey and start, doing a pilot project for another evaluation, or at least getting some initial data. And so, like, it becomes as, I think, sort of generative as it is, focused.
Absolutely.
Which I think is really a really critical component of it. And so my favorite thing is that the objective map is, number 5 here, is scalable. So no matter the size of your project, if you're doing just a simple, if you're a director of an organization and you're evaluating the program with an intake form and a survey at the very end or something like that, or if you're simply using some standard metrics and scales and gathering passive data, the objective map will help keep all of that stuff on track and help you to understand the order that you should be presenting it in. But also, if you're a large, multifaceted organization and the project or the program has a whole lot of stakeholders, and you want to know exactly how to report out these pieces of information to those funders and these pieces of information to your operations team, it can do that too.
It can. It's really easy to scale. And in fact, because it's a living document and it's it's essentially a way to converse about the project, the scalability is so easy. You can just add on to it. At its core, it's a spreadsheet, but ultimately it's a blueprint for the project. And so, the more complicated building requires a more complicated project, and it's very easy to do that through this process.
So in the next couple of videos here, Megan's going to walk you through the objective mapping process, like how to make one, and we're going to be talking about those $1 million discovery questions. Thanks for watching this and sticking with the whole series.